Just to summarize a little bit, I think governance was an issue in many of the presentations, looking at lessons on how national and local governments can be better prepared for natural disasters, both for mitigation and reducing impacts and the ability to respond. And most of these cases, we were looking at the large-scale type of natural disasters. And then several of us, Mercy and Alok and myself, all talked about the importance of community resilience, community-based resilience. And then in the final two presentations, we heard about really changing mindsets. I think that was quite interesting, about changing the mindsets around how we look at floods and flood waters. And another interesting theme that came through in several was the idea of disasters as an opportunity, or an opportunity to do things differently, an opportunity to make a change. And so I think that presents another interesting area to think about. Now, the links between lessons and experience in these disasters and food and nutrition security may appear somewhat indirect. In Asia, these kinds of events, with probably the exception of Bangladesh, but they rarely trigger the kind of widespread food insecurity that we find in other regions, responding to shocks like droughts and other slow onset disasters. But what's really the critical factor in these situations is livelihoods. It's not about availability of food in most cases. It's about purchasing power and about people being able to resume their livelihoods and get back to, having money to spend so that they can actually purchase the food that they need. So it's so part of building disaster resilience, then it's really critical, I think, to look at that link to livelihoods and where that falls in the three phases of investments that Mercy talked about, or the three phases of recovery that were part of the model in Aceh. So now I'd like to open it up for questions and comments from the audience. And we ask that you limit your time to 2 minutes in your comments. What we'd like to do is take maybe 3 questions first and respond to those, and then see how much time we have for another round or 2. Okay, we see 3 over there. This gentleman here, would you like to start?
Thank you very much for the brilliant presentations. My question comes to you, actually, Anita. When you presented a phased-out approach towards dealing with disasters, you got to one point that came to mind was the third phase. And you did mention that many organizations somehow do not have resources to do the third phase. And that is coming to me as a surprise, because for me, that is a part that can help build recovery, quick recovery next time it happens again, or resilience. Do you think it's by commission or omission that many agencies fail to place money in the third phase? Thank you.
Can I just ask also to identify yourself and say who you are when I forgot
Sorry
to
about
mention
that. My name is Baba Nibe. I work for World Vision International in the East Africa region as a food security director.
Okay. Yes?
My name is Abdul Wahid Mukrit. I'm the head of the Food Security Technical Secretariat in Yemen. I have questions to nearly every paper presented. In the case of Indonesia, what strikes me that efforts were made to help people to recover from tsunami. The question is, I haven't heard anything about if tsunami happened again, occurred again in that particular place, how we can make sure that the damages will be less. And I'm talking about the design of houses. Nothing has been mentioned in this regard. In the case of China, I like the very innovative approach of twinning, decentralized approach involving twinning of counties and affected areas. Again, the question is, what was the role of the government, the role of the central government? Do they divert their support to these counties, or the counties made use of their own resources? And the other question is, what about the design of the buildings to withstand earthquake? How this was, taken into consideration in the designing of the devastated areas? And the Philippines, one struck me the issue of that many people refused to leave in the early warning systems. What was made to overcome this problem if another cyclone happened or affected the area? Was there any measures by the government to increase awareness of people to evacuate early their places before they are affected by these disasters? And issues of India and Bangladesh. I think it was very fantastic presentation on what was happening, how this affected the country. But we haven't heard much about community efforts. What was the lessons learned? What was the successful stories of people to confront these, disasters? How people cope with these disasters? And what the lessons learned in the future to minimize these effects? Thank you.
Okay, this gentleman had his hand up, and I promise I'll look this way for the next round.
Thank you very much for all the presentations. And first, I am Leonidas Nyongabo from Burundi, far away in Central Africa. I'm working with the Anglican Church. So here I have two questions. The question number one, we saw that there is a lot of disasters in Southern and Eastern Asia. Here, my questions will be global, not for India or Pakistan or not. If we see those disasters, they affect all those areas of Southern and Eastern Asia. Did you, if I tell you, these countries, did you think to make a kind of networking for all those countries affected by the disasters in order to build resilience for all those natural disasters and food security for the farmers? If not, did you plan to do it, or do you think that it is not necessary? Number two, we have the names of these disasters. Do you plan, or did you already made to invest in research to see the main causes of these disasters? Because why am I telling that? Many times, as a practitioners, we are looking for the consequences of hazards and disasters. But the main for me, we need to look on the different causes in order to eradicate or to prevent, I don't know how. Did you invest in research to see really the different causes of these disasters? Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to start? We want to go this way, or I'll let you start, Joe.
One question about whether the pairwise link will divert some central aid. I would say not much, because at that time, at the time of a big earthquake, even the central government didn't have enough resources. Even they shipped some the relief goods to the railway station, stuck there. It were not used efficiently. So with the decentralized system, the local government received most of the donations, so they can handle the relief directly. So that's more efficient. And also the building code, that's a very good question. In the earthquake area, most of the class buildings actually are school buildings. The building was in very bad quality, and there may be many corruption is involved. So after the earthquake, you can see the best building are all school buildings and hospitals. So government paid much attentions to school buildings. Also, the government have a much stricter building code. So that's an improvement. And thirdly, on network, I think it's difficult because in the normal time, it's very hard for a country to form kind of collective actions to come up with the emergency response plans. Only after you suffer the disaster, you tend to learn from neighbors. This is my observation of China. On the causes, it's very difficult for earthquakes. I haven't seen any successful prediction of earthquakes. China has an earthquake bureau at all levels of government. They received the annual budget. Many people criticize their performance because they never predict the major earthquakes yet. Yeah.